God spoke to Job out of the whirlwind concerning the greatness of his power, the wonders of his workings, the splendor of his skill, the infinity of his wisdom. Charles Spurgeon. Through the eyes of Job, we see a unique perspective on worship in the Word, one that widens our gaze on the inner workings of what worship can be. In many respects, Job is a drastic example of what can and sometimes does happen in life. As biblical scholar Tim Mackey once wrote, the book of Job doesn't unlock the puzzle of why bad things happen to good people. Instead, it invites us to trust God's wisdom when we do encounter suffering rather than try and figure out the reason for it. This story invites us to honestly bring our grief and suffering to God and to trust that God actually cares and knows what He is doing. We may or may not relate to the level of Job's suffering, but we can all relate to suffering as a reality of life. Suffering itself is one of those highly avoided subjects, often thought to be better off left alone. But what if the suffering of life was a keyhole in the door to a life of worship? Perhaps without suffering, we'd be left with a vague understanding of God, a foggy view of the Lord, a locked door. To be clear, it's possible to worship God without suffering. This is proven by the fact that Job was a righteous man who loved and worshiped God far before any of his life was tragically turned upside down. Yet, in the unimaginable, unbearable pain and process of suffering, Job's worship remained steadfast, and his knowledge and love of God greatly grew. This is one of the mysteries of suffering. Not why some things happen or some things don't, but that despite whatever may happen, God is good, God is worthy, and God is to be worshiped. In chapter 1, verses 20 through 22, Job responds to hearing the news of losing nearly everything in his life. He loses his entire livelihood, his health, and his dearly loved children. Yet Job's response, though full of anguish, is also filled with faith. At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. Job chapter 1, verses 20 through 22. Charles Spurgeon once preached on the life of Job and said, "The Lord has taken everything away from Job, and this paved the way to his giving him more of himself. In the absence of other goods, the good God is the better seen. In prosperity, God is heard, and that is a blessing. But in adversity, God is seen, and that is a greater blessing." The reality of suffering is a revealer and a teacher. It reveals what is in us. It shines a probing light into our souls, showcasing our faith and doubt, our disposition toward God and others. It reveals both who we are and who we believe God to be. In suffering, God is revealed. As the psalmist once wrote, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Psalm 34:18. In the same way that suffering is a revealer, it is also a teacher, albeit an unwanted one. It teaches about life, about the Lord, and about worship. In C.S. Lewis's book, The Problem of Pain, he writes, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." Suffering teaches us to remember that life is short and that it is, in so many ways, out of our control. But it also teaches us to turn our hearts toward God, to cry out for help in need, to fall, broken as we may be, at his feet, to throw ourselves upon his mercy. To paraphrase a famous quote attributed to Charles Spurgeon, "I have learned to kiss the wave that throws me against the rock of ages." Suffering is a swelling wave that tosses us from our false positions of safety and security and teaches us that there is only one sure thing in life: the Lord, the rock of ages. And it is there, in that place of purpose, in the furnaces our faith must pass through, where we can recognize our great need in God's greatness. This is where we can truly worship. The story behind one of the church's most famous hymns is a heartbreaking and touching example of this. Horatio Spafford was an attorney and partner in a large law firm in Chicago. One spring, he made a major investment into real estate north of the city. Unfortunately, that same year, The Great Chicago Fire of 1871 took place. It destroyed whole parts of the city. Horatio and his family lost a fortune. At about that same time, tragically, Horatio's 4-year-old son died of scarlet fever. Thinking a vacation would do his family some good, he sent his wife and 4 daughters on a ship to England, planning to join them after he finished some pressing business at home. Yet while crossing the Atlantic, the ship his family was on collided with another and sank. Over 200 people lost their lives, including all 4 of Horatio Spafford's young daughters. His wife, Anna, survived the tragedy. Upon arriving in England, she sent a telegram to her husband that began, "Saved alone, what shall I do?" Horatio immediately set sail for England. During Horatio's trip, the captain, who knew about the horrible situation, informed Spafford they were crossing over the spot where the shipwreck had taken place. It is said that at this moment, while thinking of his daughters and all he had been through over the years, these lyrics came to him. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. The reality of life is that we cannot always claim all is well. Tragedy strikes from time to time. Sorrows like sea billows roll in and out of our lives. Tests and trials show no partiality and spare none of us. But with faith in a good God, with his help, and with trust in his character, we can confidently say and know it is well. It is well with my soul. After all Job's suffering, the loss of wealth, health, and family, after all his wrestling with God, the faith and doubt, and after the conversations with his friends and their attempts to explain why these horrible things have happened, the Lord finally and firmly answers Job. And it is not the answer we'd expect. We expect God to explain why all these things have happened, or to tell him everything would be okay, or that there was a secret purpose in all of it. But God does something different. The Lord tells Job that his ways are beyond comprehension. He poetically describes his divine wisdom, power, and sovereignty over all creation, reminding Job of the limitations of human understanding. Ultimately, the Lord's response is a call for Job to trust and worship him, even in the face of suffering and unanswered questions. Job's answer to the Lord is one of humility and worship, despite his deep pain and suffering. In chapter 42, verse 5, Job says, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." This is the wisdom of worship, bestowing upon God what he is worthy of in all seasons and through circumstances. In all suffering, he is worthy. In all tragedy, he is uniquely present, close to the brokenhearted. We may not always get the answers for the why behind our suffering, but we can always worship. This is the wisdom that can be found in suffering. In the good, God is heard, but in our pain, God is seen.